Out on a stroll after a brutal day, Kean Thorne walked through the dimly lit streets alone, just to clear his head. Then he heard it. Shallow gasps. He moved closer and froze. There, under a flickering streetlight, a white female cop, beaten, bloodied, and barely breathing, lay on the cold pavement. Kean Thorne stood over her, his heart pounding, his mind racing. Should he save the dying cop or walk away? He'd made a vow. Never get involved with police business. But her life was slipping away, and something inside him refused to let him turn his back. Kean Thorne was not having a good day. The kind of day where everything that could go wrong did. 2 shipments delayed, a rival family making moves on his territory, his most trusted lieutenant questioning his decisions. And to top it all off, a splitting headache that felt like his skull was about to crack open. He needed air, space, a moment away from the constant pressure of being the man everyone feared and depended on. So he did something he rarely did. He walked alone. No bodyguards, no driver, no entourage, just Kean Thorne in the empty streets of the warehouse district. At 11 p.m., the cool night air hit his face as he moved through the shadows, hands deep in his coat pockets. This part of town was quiet, too quiet for most people, but Kean liked it that way. No noise, no demands, just the sound of his footsteps echoing off brick walls. Then he heard something faint, desperate, a sound that made his trained instincts snap to attention. Shallow gasps, like someone struggling to breathe. Kean stopped, his body going rigid. Every nerve in his body told him to keep walking, to mind his own business. He'd built his empire on one rule. Never get involved with law enforcement, never. Cops meant trouble, questions, investigations, the kind of attention that could destroy everything he'd worked for. But the gasping got weaker, more desperate, and Kean found his feet moving before his brain could stop them. He turned the corner into a narrow alley, and that's when he saw her. A woman in a police uniform slumped against a dumpster like a discarded rag doll. Her face was pale, too pale. Blood pooled beneath her, dark and spreading. Her eyes were half closed, her breathing shallow and ragged. She'd been beaten badly. Her uniform was torn in places, her badge hanging crooked on her chest and her hand. Her hand was pressed weakly against her side where blood seeped through her fingers. Kean's jaw clenched. He should walk away. Should pretend he never saw this. Cops died all the time in this city. It wasn't his problem, wasn't his responsibility. But something about the way she looked, so broken, so alone, made him hesitate. He'd made a vow years ago. Never involve himself in police matters. It was how he stayed out of prison, how he kept his operations clean, how he protected his people. Getting mixed up with a dying cop was asking for trouble, begging for it. The woman's eyes flickered. Her lips moved. "Help!" The word came out barely a whisper, so weak, Kean almost missed it. Her head tilted toward him, and for a split second, their eyes met. She wasn't begging, wasn't pleading, just looking at him with the kind of acceptance that said she knew she was dying, that she'd made peace with it. And somehow, that made it worse. Kean cursed under his breath, loud, sharp, angry at himself for even hesitating. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over the emergency dial. One call, anonymous. Then he could disappear before anyone arrived. Simple, clean. But as he looked at the woman again, something inside him shifted. She wasn't just a cop. She was someone's daughter, maybe someone's sister. Someone who'd probably spent her whole life trying to do the right thing in a city that punished people for it, just like he'd been punished for trying to survive in a world that gave him no other choice. Damn it. Kean shoved his phone back in his pocket and moved closer. He knelt beside her, his expensive shoes soaking in her blood. The smell hit him immediately, metallic, sharp, the smell of someone who didn't have much time left. "Hey," Kian said, his voice rough. "Can you hear me?" The woman's eyes opened wider. Fear flashed across her face when she saw who was kneeling beside her. Even half dead, she recognized him. Kian Thorne, the most dangerous man in the city, boss of the Thorne Syndicate. The man the police had been trying to bring down for years. "No," she gasped, trying to pull away. Her hand reached weakly for her empty holster. Her weapon was gone, probably taken by whoever did this to her. "Relax," Kian said sharply. "I'm not here to finish the job." The woman's breathing got more erratic, panic mixing with pain. You're Kian Thorne." Kian's expression didn't change. "Yeah, and you're dying. So, unless you want your last moments to be bleeding out in an alley, you're going to let me help you." She tried to shake her head, but the movement made her wows. Blood bubbled at the corner of her mouth. "Can't," she choked out. "Can't trust you." Kian laughed bitterly. "Lady, if I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. I've got better things to do than watch a cop bleed out." He pressed his hand over hers, applying pressure to the wound in her side. She gasped in pain, her body going rigid. "Who did this to you?" Kian demanded. "Who?" Her eyes filled with tears, not from pain, from something darker. "My own partner." The words hit Kian like a punch. "What? Set me up?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Dirty cops been investigating them. They found out. Tried to silence me." Kian's mind raced. A cop investigating corruption set up by her own people left to die in an alley. This wasn't just an attack. This was an execution. And whoever ordered it had connections. Power enough to make a police officer disappear without questions. "How many others?" Kian asked urgently. "How many cops are involved?" She tried to answer, but her eyes started rolling back. "No." Kian grabbed her face, forcing her to focus on him. "Stay with me. You don't get to die yet. Not until you tell me who did this." "Names," he demanded. "I need names." Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Her body was shutting down. Kian looked around the empty alley. No witnesses, no cameras, just him and a dying cop who'd been betrayed by the people sworn to protect her. He had two choices. Walk away. Pretend this never happened. Keep his vow to stay away from police business, protect his empire, protect his people, or break that vow. Risk everything, and save someone who'd probably spent her entire career trying to put men like him behind bars. Kian closed his eyes, thought of all the reasons he should leave, all the ways this could destroy him. Then he thought of something else. His younger sister Lena dead at 19 because dirty cops on someone's payroll looked the other way when she overdosed, because corruption protected the dealers who sold her the drugs that killed her, because nobody with power gave a damn about one girl from the streets, Lena, her name still cut like broken glass every time he thought it. She'd been so young, so full of life. And the cops, the ones who were supposed to protect people like her, they'd taken $500 a week to let the dealer operate 3 blocks from a police station, split between 4 officers. Kian had found out their names years later, tracked every one of them. But by then they'd retired, moved away, protected by the system they'd corrupted. He'd never gotten justice for Lena. But maybe, just maybe, he could get it for this woman. Kian's eyes snapped open, rage burning through him like fire. He scooped the woman into his arms. She was light, too light. Her head lolled against his chest, her breathing barely there. "You're not dying tonight," Kian said through clenched teeth. "Not like this. Not because some dirty cops decided you were expendable." He carried her out of the alley, his mind already calculating his next moves. He couldn't take her to a hospital. Too many questions, too much attention. But he knew someone, a doctor who owed him, who didn't ask questions, who could keep her alive long enough to get answers. As Kian moved through the empty streets, the woman's hand suddenly gripped his jacket. Her eyes opened one more time. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you helping me?" Kian didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, "Because someone should have helped my sister, and nobody did." The woman's eyes closed again, but her grip on his jacket tightened just slightly, like maybe, just maybe, she understood. Kian pulled out his phone with one hand, still carrying her with the other. He dialed a number. "Silas, I need the doctor at the safe house on 5th. Now, I don't care if he's sleeping. Wake him. This is code red." He hung up before his lieutenant could ask questions. Kian looked down at the woman in his arms. Her face was ghostly pale, her pulse weak beneath his fingers. He'd just broken his most important rule, and he had no idea what consequences were coming. But as he carried a dying cop through the shadows of the city he ruled, Kian Thorne realized something. Some rules were meant to be broken, and tonight he was about to find out if saving one life would cost him everything. The safe house on 5th Street looked like any other abandoned warehouse from the outside. Rusted metal doors, broken windows covered with plywood, graffiti tags spray-painted across brick walls. But Kian knew better. Behind those doors was a fully equipped medical facility, state-of-the-art equipment, surgical lights, monitoring systems, everything needed to treat injuries that couldn't be explained in a hospital. He kicked the door open, still carrying the dying cop in his arms. Her breathing had gotten even weaker. Her skin felt like ice against his chest. Silas was already there, pacing like a caged animal. His eyes went wide when he saw what Kian was carrying. "Boss, is the doctor here?" "Yeah, but boss, that's a cop. You brought a cop to our safe house." "Are you out of your—" I said. "Is the doctor here?" Kian's tone left no room for argument. Silas nodded frantically. "Yeah, but Dr. Lee appeared from the back room, medical bag already in hand. He was in his 60s, gray hair, steady hands, and the kind of face that had seemed too much to be shocked by anything. But even he paused when he saw the police uniform. "Mr. Thorne," Lee said carefully, "this is complicated. She's dying," Kian said flatly. "Fix her now." Lee looked at Silas, then back at Kian. "If she dies here, if anyone finds out, we'll handle the consequences." Kian interrupted. "Right now she needs surgery." "So, either you operate or I find someone who will." Lee didn't argue further. He'd been in Kian's debt for years, a gambling problem that would have gotten him killed if Kian hadn't intervened. Now he paid that debt in blood and silence. "Get her on the table," Lee commanded, snapping into professional mode. Kian laid the woman down on the steel surgical table. Under the bright lights, she looked even worse. Bruises covered her face, deep gashes on her arms, and the wound in her side, dark and oozing. Lee cut away her uniform, exposing the full extent of the damage. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, internal bleeding. He worked quickly, his hands moving with practiced precision, inserting IVs, hooking up monitors, preparing surgical instruments. Silas pulled Kian aside, his voice low and urgent. "Boss, you need to think about this. She's a cop. When she wakes up, she's going to ask questions. And when the police realize she's missing, they're going to come looking." "Let them look," Kian said coldly. "But boss, this isn't up for discussion, Silas." Kian's eyes were hard as diamonds. She was left to die by her own people, cops who are supposed to protect and serve. If that doesn't make you sick, then you're not the man I thought you were. Silas went quiet. He'd known Kian for 15 years, had seen him make brutal decisions without hesitation, had watched him build an empire through force and fear, but he'd never seen this look into Kian's eyes, this rage, this sense of purpose that went beyond business. What aren't you telling me? Silas asked carefully. What's really going on here? Kian was silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, she was investigating dirty cops. Her own partner set her up, left her to bleed out because she was getting too close to the truth. Silas's expression shifted, understanding dawning. And you think those same dirty cops might be connected to us? To our operations? Kian nodded slowly. Think about it, Silas. How many times have we paid off cops? How many times have shipments gotten through because someone in a uniform looked the other way? What if the people we've been paying are the same ones who tried to kill her? The implications hit Silas like a truck. If that was true, if the corruption went that deep, then they weren't just dealing with one dying cop. They were sitting on a conspiracy that could bring down half the police force and expose every criminal organization that had been paying for protection, including theirs. We need to know what she knows, Silas said urgently, who she was investigating, what she found, and we need to know it before she wakes up and realizes she's in the hands of the Thorn Syndicate. Kian looked through the glass partition at Dr. Lee, working frantically to save the woman's life. I'll handle it, Kian said. You focus on making sure nobody followed us here. Double the guards. Nobody gets in or out without my permission. Silas nodded and pulled out his phone, already making calls. Kian stood alone, watching the surgery through the glass, his mind racing. He'd just crossed a line he could never uncross, and there was no going back now. 20 minutes later, Lee emerged, peeling off blood-soaked gloves. She's stable, Lee said, exhaustion clear in his voice. For now, but she lost a lot of blood. The next 24 hours are critical. Will she wake up? Kian asked. Eventually, Lee replied. But when she does, she's going to be in significant pain. I can manage that. But Mr. Thorne, she's going to need answers. She's going to want to know where she is, who saved her, why. Kian walked past him into the recovery room where the woman lay unconscious. Tubes ran from her arms. Monitors beeped steadily. Her face was clean now. The blood washed away. She looked younger than he'd thought, maybe early 30s. Her dark hair pulled back from her face. Even unconscious, there was something fierce about her, something that refused to quit. Kian pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. He didn't know why, didn't understand the pull he felt, but he stayed there watching her breathe, making sure. She kept breathing. Hours passed in silence. Silas came in twice to update him on security measures. Lee checked her vitals repeatedly, but Kian didn't move. Finally, as dawn light started filtering through the warehouse cracks, Kian reached into his jacket pocket. His fingers closed around a small photo frame, worn leather edges, glass slightly cracked. Lena's face smiled up at him. 19 years old, forever frozen in that moment before everything went wrong. He set it on the bedside table where he could see it. I couldn't save you, sis, he whispered to the image. Maybe I can save her. The monitor beeped, steady, weak. But there, a fragile rhythm of life continuing against all odds. The woman's eyes fluttered, her hand twitched. A soft groan escaped her lips. Kian leaned forward. Can you hear me? Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then sharp, alert, taking in her surroundings with trained observation. Where? She croaked, her voice barely audible. Where am I? Safe house, Kian said honestly. You were dying. I brought you here. Her eyes found his face. Recognition flashed immediately, followed by confusion, then anger. You. She tried to sit up, gasping in pain. The monitors started beeping louder. Don't move, Kian said firmly. You just had surgery. Your lung was collapsed. 3 ribs broken, internal bleeding. You're lucky to be alive. She stared at him with suspicion and fear. Why would you save me? Why would Kian Thorne give a damn if a cop lives or dies? Because your own people left you to die, Kian said bluntly. And I don't like watching anyone get executed in an alley, even cops. Her face went pale. Not from pain, from memory. My partner, she whispered. Sanchez, he shot me. Left me there. Said I should have minded my own business. Kian's jaw clenched. What were you investigating? The woman's eyes filled with tears, not from weakness, from fury, corruption, payoffs, evidence of cops taking money from dealers, from organized crime, from people like you. Kian didn't flinch, and you got too close. She nodded weakly. I had names, dates, transaction records. I was going to turn it all in. That's when Sanchez found out. He and 3 other officers cornered me after my shift, beat me, shot me, told me I was a liability. Her voice broke. They left me to die like garbage. Kian stood up slowly. Those names you collected? Do you remember them? She looked at him wearily. Why? Because if those cops are dirty enough to kill one of their own, they're dirty enough to be on multiple payrolls, including mine, and I want to know who I've been doing business with. The woman's expression shifted, understanding dawning. You think the cops you paid off are the same ones who tried to kill me? I know they are, Kian said coldly, because this city isn't big enough for multiple corruption rings. If you were investigating payoffs, you were investigating my operations, whether you knew it or not. She processed this, then said quietly, So, what now? You keep me here? Use me as leverage? Kill me before I can talk? Kian leaned closer, his voice intense. Now you heal? You get your strength back? And then you and I are going to do something neither of us ever thought possible. Her eyes narrowed. What? We're going to take down every dirty cop in this city, Kian said with absolute certainty. Together, the woman laughed, a bitter, painful sound. You're insane. You're a criminal. I'm a cop. We're on opposite sides, are we? Kian challenged. Because from where I'm standing, your side just tried to murder you, and my side just saved your life. So maybe it's time to stop thinking about sides and start thinking about what's right. She stared at him, conflict clear on her face. Then she asked the question that changed everything. What's your name? Thorne. Kian Thorne. No, she said softly. Your real name? Not the legend, not the reputation. Who are you? Kian was silent. Nobody had asked him that in years. Finally, he said quietly, a man who's tired of watching this city eat people alive, just like you are. Her expression softened just slightly. My name is Maya, she said. Detective Maya Vance. Kian nodded. Well, Detective Vance, welcome to the only place in this city where corrupt cops can't touch you. Maya looked around the medical facility. The equipment, the security, the reality of where she was. I should hate you, she said. I've spent 3 years trying to build a case against your organization. I know, Kian said simply. And when this is over, you can go back to that. But right now, we have a common enemy. Cops who think they're above the law, who think they can kill without consequences. And I don't know about you, but I'm done letting them get away with it. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that shocked even herself. Okay, Kian repeated, surprised. She met his eyes with determination. I'll work with you temporarily to expose the corruption, to bring down Sanchez and everyone involved. But Thorne, when this is done, when the dirty cops are in prison, you and I go back to being enemies. Understood? Kian smiled grimly. Understood. He extended his hand. She looked at it, then slowly, painfully, reached out and shook it. And in that moment, in that abandoned warehouse-turned medical facility, the most unlikely alliance in the city's history was born. A mafia boss and a dying cop, united by betrayal, fueled by rage, and determined to burn down the corruption that had nearly destroyed them both. 3 days later, Maya was strong enough to walk with assistance, strong enough to demand answers, and Kian was ready to give them to her. The warehouse had become her prison and sanctuary. She couldn't leave, not yet, not while every cop in the city was searching for her. Kian had his people monitoring police frequencies. What they heard made his blood run cold. Detective Maya Vance missing, presumed dead. A memorial service being planned. Her badge number retired, case closed. Just like that. No investigation into who killed her. No questions about the ambush. Just a quiet burial of the truth. Convenient? Too convenient. Maya stood by the window, staring at the city she'd sworn to protect, the city that had betrayed her. Her ribs still ached. Her breathing was shallow, but the fire in her eyes burned brighter than ever. "They're not even looking for me," she said bitterly. 3 years on the force, commendations, awards, and they've already written me off. Kian stood behind her, arms crossed. "That's because they want you dead. Finding you alive complicates their story, raises questions, exposes lies." Maya turned to face him. "So what's your plan? Because I know you didn't save me out of the goodness of your heart. You want something?" Kian didn't deny it. "I want names. Every dirty cop on your list. Every payoff you documented. Every connection you found." She laughed harshly. "And then what? You eliminate them? Add more bodies to your empire? That's not justice, Thorne. That's revenge." Kian's eyes went hard. "You think I built this empire on revenge? I built it on survival, on protecting people. The system failed. People like my sister, people like you." Maya's expression shifted. "Your sister?" Kian was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice rough with old pain. "Lena, 19 years old, overdosed on heroin cut with fentanyl, bought from a dealer operating 3 blocks from a police station." "You know why that dealer was never arrested?" Maya waited, her chest tightening. "Because he was paying cops for protection," Kian said flatly. $500 a week, split between 4 officers. My sister died because those cops valued money over lives." He stepped closer, his voice intense. "So don't lecture me about justice, detective. I know exactly what the system protects, and it's not people like us." Maya was quiet, processing. Then she said softly, "I'm sorry about your sister." Kian turned away. "Don't be. Just help me make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else." The door burst open. Silas rushed in, his face pale. "Boss, we've got a problem." "What kind?" Kian demanded. "The kind that involves Sanchez and 6 other cops surrounding this building." Maya's blood went cold. "They found me." "How?" Maya asked urgently. Silas shook his head. "Don't know, but they're not here officially. No backup, no patrol cars, just 7 dirty cops. With weapons and bad intentions." Kian's mind raced. They'd been careful. No phone calls, no digital trails. Someone must have talked, or worse. Someone had been watching. "Get her to the basement," Kian commanded. "Silas, take 3 men. Protect her with your life." "What about you?" Maya asked, alarmed in her voice. Kian pulled a handgun from his waistband, checked the clip. "I'm going to have a conversation with your former colleagues." "You can't fight them," Maya said urgently. "They'll kill you. Then they'll storm in here and finish what they started." Kian smiled coldly. "Detective, I've been fighting dirty cops since I was 16. They don't scare me." Silas grabbed Maya's arm. "Come on, we need to move." Maya resisted. "Wait." She looked at Kian. "If you kill them, if you add more bodies, you're proving everything they say about you, that you're a monster, that you're the enemy." Kian met her eyes. "Maybe I am, but I'm a monster who saves people. What are they?" Maya had no answer. Silas pulled her toward the basement access. She went reluctantly, looking back at Kian one last time. Outside, Sanchez and his crew moved like shadows, professional, coordinated, weapons drawn. Sanchez was in his 40s, thick build, cold eyes. The kind of cop who'd stopped believing in justice years ago. If she survived, she's in there. Sanchez said to his team, find her, kill her, and anyone who helped her. One of the younger cops hesitated. Sanchez, maybe we should... Maybe what? Sanchez snapped. Call for backup. Explain why we're executing a fellow officer. She knows too much. She has evidence. If she talks, we all go to prison. So we end this tonight. They approached the warehouse entrance. Sanchez tested the door. Locked. He signaled to one of his men, breaching charge. But before they could plant it, the door swung open. Keon stood in the doorway, unarmed, calm, hands visible at his sides. Gentlemen, Keon said with dangerous politeness, can I help you? Sanchez's gun came up immediately. Keon Thorne, step aside. We have reason to believe you're harboring a fugitive. Keon smiled coldly. A fugitive? You mean the cop you left to die in an alley? Sanchez's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered. Dangerous. I don't know what you're talking about. Keon leaned against the doorframe, completely relaxed despite the 6 guns aimed at his chest. Detective Maya Vance, shot by her partner, left to bleed out. Except she didn't die. Unfortunate for you? Sanchez's finger moved to the trigger. Where is she? Keon's smile widened. Somewhere you'll never reach. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to lower your weapons, leave my property, and pray I don't decide to make your corruption public. Sanchez laughed. You're threatening us. We're the law, Thorne. We can walk in there right now and nobody will question it. Keon's expression went ice cold. You're not the law. You're criminals wearing badges. And the difference between you and me? I don't pretend to be. Something I'm not. The younger cop spoke up nervously. Sanchez, maybe we should shut up. Sanchez snarled then to Keon. Last chance. Hand over Vance or we come in shooting. Keon didn't move. Then you better make your first shot count because you won't get a second. Sanchez's face went red with rage. He raised his weapon. That's when the rooftops lit up. 20 men, all armed, all with laser sights pointed at Sanchez and his crew. Keon's people positioned for exactly this scenario. Sanchez froze. His team looked around in panic, red dots dancing across their chests. You were saying? Keon asked calmly. Something about coming and shooting? Sanchez's voice shook with barely controlled fury. You're making a mistake, Thorne. A big one. We have friends, connections. You can't fight the entire police force. Keon stepped forward. I'm not fighting the entire force, just the corrupt parts. And Detective Vance has everything. Names, dates, bank records, every payoff you've taken, every dealer you've protected, every law you've broken. She was going to expose you 3 days ago. He paused, letting that sink in. Now she has my resources, my protection, and my motivation to see you all destroyed. Sanchez's hands trembled. You're bluffing. Try me, Keon said softly. Walk away right now and you might survive the week. Come into my property, threaten my people, and I promise you'll be in prison before dawn, or worse. The standoff held for 10 agonizing seconds. Finally, Sanchez lowered his weapon. His team followed suit. This isn't over, Sanchez said through clenched teeth. Agreed, Keon replied. It's just beginning. Sanchez and his crew backed away slowly, never taking their eyes off the rooftops, never lowering their guard. When they finally disappeared into the night, Keon's shoulders relaxed slightly. Silas emerged from the basement with Maya. She looked shocked. You just threatened 7 armed cops. Do you have a death wish? Keon holstered his weapon. I have a strategy. There's a difference. What strategy? Maya demanded. You just made yourself a target. They'll come back with more people, more weapons. They'll destroy you. Keon turned to face her. Let them try, because here's what they don't know. He paused, his expression grim. "I've been recording everything. Every payoff they took from my organization, every transaction, every meeting. I have proof that connects them to dealers, traffickers, murderers." Maya's eyes went wide. "You've been documenting them, just like I was." Keon nodded. "The difference is, I have the resources to protect my evidence, to distribute it if something happens to me. Sanchez and his crew, they're not just fighting one detective anymore. They're fighting an entire network." Maya sat down heavily processing this. Why? Why would you collect evidence against people you were paying? Keon's expression was grim. "Because I learned a long time ago, never trust anyone you can't destroy. Those cops weren't partners, they were liabilities, waiting to happen, and now they're exposed." Maya looked at him with new understanding. "You're not just a criminal, you're a strategist." Keon smiled without humor. "In my world, there's no difference. You strategize or you die." Maya stood up slowly, her ribs aching. "So what's the plan? We can't stay here. Sanchez will be back with reinforcements. We need to move before—" She stopped abruptly, her eyes going to the window. Keon followed her gaze. Outside, the street was filling with police cars. Not just 7 dirty cops, 20 vehicles, 40 officers surrounding the warehouse. Silas cursed loudly. "Boss, we're surrounded." Keon's jaw clenched. He'd miscalculated. Sanchez hadn't retreated. He'd called for backup. And now they were trapped. Maya's face went pale. "They're going to storm the building, kill everyone inside, blame it on a shootout." Keon pulled out his phone, made a call. "I need everything right now." He hung up and looked at Maya. "How much do you trust me?" "Not at all," Maya said honestly. "Good," Keon replied, "because what I'm about to do will either save both our lives or get us both killed, and I need you to follow my lead without questioning it." Maya looked at the police force gathering outside, at the men on the rooftops, at Keon's crew preparing for war. Then she made a decision that would change everything. "Okay, I trust you." Keon's expression shifted, something like respect in his eyes. Then, "Let's give them a show they'll never forget." He grabbed a megaphone, stepped out onto the warehouse catwalk where everyone could see him, and spoke words that would echo through the entire city. "My name is Keon Thorne, and I'm here to expose the biggest corruption scandal in this city's history. Every cop down there with a badge. Ask yourselves, do you know who you're working with? Because some of your brothers aren't here to uphold the law. They're here to bury it." Maya stepped beside him, visible to everyone, alive, breathing. Proof that Sanchez had lied. "Detective Maya Vance," Keon continued, his voice carrying across the courtyard, "alive. Despite the efforts of corrupt officers who tried to execute her for investigating their crimes." The crowd stirred, confusion spreading through the ranks. Sanchez's voice came over a loudspeaker. "Don't listen to him. He's a criminal. He's lying." Keon pulled out a USB drive, held it high. "This contains proof, bank records, recordings, evidence of 15 police officers taking payoffs from dealers and criminals, including the man giving you orders right now, Lieutenant Sanchez." The night erupted into chaos. Some cops looked at Sanchez with shock, others with suspicion. The clean cops suddenly realizing they were standing beside the corrupt ones. And in that moment of confusion, of division, of truth crashing into lies, the warehouse courtyard became a battlefield of loyalty and betrayal. Cops staring at other cops, hands hovering near weapons, trust shattering like glass. Sanchez's face went crimson with rage. He's lying. That evidence is fabricated. Thorne is trying to save his own skin by destroying ours. Then let's verify it. A voice called from the crowd. Captain Diana Wells pushed through the assembled officers. She was 50, steel gray hair, 28 years on the force, and a reputation for being incorruptible. She looked up at Keon with hard eyes. Thorne, you're claiming to have proof of police corruption. Kean held up the USB drive. 15 officers, 3 years of documented payoffs, names, dates, bank transfers, all verified by Detective Vance before she was nearly murdered by one of your own. Wells's eyes shifted to Maya, her expression unreadable. Vance, you're alive. Yes, ma'am, Maya called down, her voice stronger now. And everything Thorne said is true. Sanchez and 6 others tried to execute me 3 days ago because I discovered they were taking money from dealers and organized crime. Wells's jaw clenched. That's a serious accusation, Detective. I know, Maya replied. That's why I have 3 years of evidence to back it up. Sanchez's hand moved toward his weapon. Hands where I can see them, Sanchez. Wells's voice cracked like a whip. Now Sanchez froze around him. Sanchez's crew of dirty cops looked panicked. Some started backing toward their vehicles. Wells's voice rose louder. Nobody moves. If what Detective Vance says is true, then we have a cancer in this department, and I will cut it out regardless of who it implicates. She looked back at Kean. Thorne, I want that evidence, and I want it verified by independent investigators. Not your people, not mine. Federal. Kean nodded slowly. Agreed. On one condition. Wells's eyes narrowed. You're not in a position to make conditions? Kean's voice was still. I am when that evidence also implicates 3 city councilmen, 2 judges, and a deputy mayor. You want to clean up this city? Then we do it right. Federal investigation. Full immunity for Vance and protection for both of us until every corrupt official is in custody. Wells was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke into her radio. This is Captain Wells. I need FBI liaison immediately. Federal investigation into departmental corruption. And I need internal affairs to secure Sanchez and his unit. Sanchez's face went white. You're making a mistake, Diana. A career-ending mistake. The only mistake I made, Wells said coldly, was not listening when good officers like Vance tried to report corruption. That ends tonight. IIA officers moved forward, weapons drawn, surrounding Sanchez and his crew. One of the younger dirty cops panicked, raised his weapon. Don't! Maya screamed from the catwalk. But it was too late. The shot rang out. Chaos exploded. Officers diving for cover returned fire from Kean's men on the rooftops. Civilians in nearby buildings screaming. Kean grabbed Maya and pulled her back inside the warehouse. Move now! They ran through the corridor as bullets shattered windows. Silas met them at the stairs. Boss, we've got 3 exits. East side is clear. Kean shook his head. We're not running. Not anymore. He turned to Maya. That evidence you collected. Where's the original? Maya's eyes went wide. In my apartment, hidden in the ventilation system. Nobody knows it's there. Kean grabbed his phone. Silas, I need a team at Detective Vance's apartment. West Side Unit 4B. Retrieve a package hidden in the vent system. Bring it here immediately. Silas's voice came back through the phone. Boss, that's across town. We'll need to get through roadblocks. Do it, Kean commanded. This is everything. Maya grabbed his arm. Wait, if they find that evidence first, if Sanchez has people watching my apartment, they don't, Kean said with certainty. Because they think you're dead. They think the evidence died with you. That's our advantage. Outside, the gunfire stopped. Wells's voice came over a megaphone. Cease fire. Everyone stand down. Slowly, the chaos settled. The dirty cop who'd fired the first shot was on the ground, wounded, but alive. IA officers had Sanchez and his crew in handcuffs. Wells looked up at the warehouse. Thorne Vance, we need to talk face to face. Kean looked at Maya. Your call, Detective. Do we trust her? Maya thought about Wells, her reputation, her history. Then she nodded. She's one of the good ones. If anyone can help us, it's her. They descended to the courtyard. Wells stood waiting, flanked by 2 IIA officers. Up close, her expression was complicated. Relief, anger, determination. Vance, Wells said quietly, when we found your badge and blood at that scene, I thought we'd lost one of the best. Maya's throat tightened. I'm sorry I didn't come to you sooner, Captain. I didn't know who to trust. Wells' expression softened slightly. I understand why. This department has failed you, but we're going to make it right. She turned to Kian. Thorne, I don't like you. I don't like what you represent. But if what you're saying is true, you may have just exposed the biggest corruption scandal in this city's history. Kian met her eyes evenly. It's true, every word. And it goes higher than just street cops taking payoffs. A black SUV pulled up. FBI agents emerged. Professional, no nonsense. Wells briefed them quickly. They listened with increasingly grim expressions. One agent, a woman in her 40s named Ramirez, approached Kian. Mr. Thorne, we'll need your full cooperation. Everything you have? Recordings, documents, testimony. Kian nodded. You'll get it, but I want guarantees. Protection for Detective Vance, immunity from prosecution for crimes related to this investigation, and security until every corrupt official is in custody. Ramirez considered this. You're asking for a lot. I'm offering more, Kian replied. 3 years of documented corruption, connections between organized crime and city officials. Evidence that will reshape this entire city. Ramirez extended her hand. Deal. But Thorne, if you're lying, if this is some kind of manipulation, I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your life in federal prison. Kian shook her hand firmly. I'm not lying because, unlike the cops who tried to kill Detective Vance, I actually want to see justice done. Silas arrived 20 minutes later, breathing hard, carrying a manila envelope sealed with evidence tape. Boss, got it. Maya took the envelope with trembling hands. This is everything. 3 years of work. Bank statements, recordings, photographs of cash exchanges, documented meetings between cops and dealers. It's all here. Ramirez took the envelope carefully. We'll need time to verify this. Weeks of investigation, maybe months. Maya's voice was urgent. We don't have months. Sanchez isn't working alone. There are others, powerful people, who will do anything to bury this. Ramirez's expression was grim. Then we work fast and we protect our witnesses. She signaled to her team. Maya Vance and Kian Thorne are under federal protection effective immediately. Nobody touches them without going through us. Sanchez screamed from where he was handcuffed. You're making a mistake. Thorne is a criminal, a liar. You're protecting the enemy. Wells walked over to Sanchez, her voice ice. No, Sanchez. We were the enemy. We took an oath to protect and serve, and we broke it for money, for power. We became the thing we were supposed to fight. She turned her back on him, disgusted. Take them away. Sanchez and his crew were loaded into transport vehicles, still shouting, still threatening, but their power was broken, their secrets exposed. As the vehicles drove away, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Real. Fragile. But there she looked at Kian, standing beside her despite everything. A criminal who'd saved her life, who'd risked his empire to expose corruption, who'd proven that sometimes the lines between good and evil weren't as clear as badges and handcuffs. Thank you, Maya said quietly, for everything. Kian's expression was unreadable. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. The people at the top, the ones Sanchez was protecting, they're not going to let this go quietly. Maya nodded. I know, but now we have federal protection, evidence, people who will listen. Kian looked at the city skyline, lights glittering in the darkness. For the first time in years, he felt something other than cynicism. Maybe, just maybe, things could actually change. Maybe, Maya said, reading his thoughts. But it starts with us, with people willing to fight even when the system is broken. Kian smiled grimly. Then I guess we're in for one hell of a fight. 3 weeks later, the city exploded. 15 cops arrested, 3 city councilmen indicted, 2 judges facing federal charges, a deputy mayor resigning in disgrace. The corruption scandal made national news, headlines screaming about the detective who survived assassination and the mafia boss who helped expose everything. Maya stood in Captain Wells's office, now promoted to lieutenant, her badge restored, her reputation rebuilt. Wells looked at her with respect. You did good, Vance. Damn good. Maya felt pride, but also exhaustion. It's not over yet, Captain. There are still corrupt officers out there, still dealers operating, still work to do. Wells nodded. Then, get to work, Lieutenant. Maya left the office. Outside, Kian was waiting, leaning against his car. Looking dangerously out of place at a police station, they'd agreed to meet one last time to close this chapter. You came? Maya said, surprised. Kian shrugged. Figured I owed you a proper goodbye. Maya studied him. So what now? You go back to your empire. Pretend none of this happened. Kian was quiet. Then he said something unexpected. Actually, I'm retiring. Maya's eyes went wide. What? Kian smiled without humor. Turns out exposing corruption is bad for business. My partners are nervous. My connections are severed. And honestly, I'm tired. Tired of the violence, the lies, the endless game. Maya didn't know what to say. So, what will you do? Kian looked at the sky. Something different. Something that doesn't involve bullets and betrayal. Maybe something that actually helps people like you do. Maya's chest tightened. Thorn. Alex, Kian corrected. But you can call me by my real name, Alex Stone. Maya blinked. You've been using an alias this whole time. Alex smiled. In my world, real names get you killed. But I figure if I'm starting over, I should start with the truth. Maya extended her hand. Then, goodbye, Alex Stone. And thank you for everything. Alex shook her hand, then pulled her into an unexpected hug. Brief, but genuine. Take care of yourself, Maya. Make this city worth saving. Maya watched him drive away, disappearing into traffic. A criminal who'd become an ally. An enemy who'd become a friend. A man who'd proven that redemption was possible, even in the darkest places. She turned back to the police station, her badge heavy on her chest. The city still broken, but healing. One arrest at a time, one corrupt official exposed, one life saved. And somewhere across town, Alex Stone, formerly Kian Thorne, sat in his empty mansion, looking at the empire he was dismantling, the businesses he was selling, the life he was leaving behind. His sister's photo sat on the desk, Lena smiling, forever 19. Maybe I finally kept my promise, he whispered to her image. Maybe I finally made things right. He picked up the frame, ran his thumb across the cracked glass. All these years, he'd carried this guilt like a stone in his chest, the weight of failing her, of not being there when she needed him most, but saving Maya, exposing the corruption that had protected Lena's killer. It didn't erase the pain. It never would. It just proved that even in a city this broken, even from the darkest corners, justice could still find a way. Outside, the city continued, corrupt officials being arrested, honest cops rising through ranks no longer blocked by dirty lieutenants, a system slowly, painfully being rebuilt. And 2 people, a detective and a former mafia boss, had proven that sometimes justice doesn't come from the system. It comes from people brave enough to fight for it, regardless of which side of the law they stand on. If this story moved you, ask yourself, would you have the courage to trust your enemy to save your life? Would you fight for justice, even when the system is broken? Share this story with someone who needs to remember heroes aren't always the ones wearing badges. They're the ones with the courage to do what's right, no matter the cost. Because sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected.